And one really important thing that I learned in the absence of the technology was just how important it is for us to be able to make the most educated decisions. So measurement first and evaluating scleral shape with the technology that's available today is how we pick starting lenses. It's how we can now identify patients that may be best suited for freeform versus spherical, toric, a variety of different lens designs. And so the data today that we get from ocular surface topography is just so valuable in our practices.
I would say in the last few years, this has been one of the most exciting things is scleral profilometry, because we can design lenses better than we ever could before.
Before, we used to get a patient, and obviously you consider the corneal issues, but you didn't know what the sclera looked like until you put the first lens. And then you see how that lens fits, where is it, you have some impingement or the other way around, and then you would change the lens. And now we do it the other way around. First, we obviously consider still the corneal situation, but we first take the fit. Then we know what kind of sclera we're dealing with in the right eye, what kind of sclera we're dealing with in the left eye, and then we go on from there. So that's been a big change in how we approach the patient.
From a practice management standpoint, I've also noticed that it's helped my relationship with my corneal specialist in town. So there's a little bit better communication regarding shared patients. I've noticed an increase in referrals. One, knowing that I have that technology, but this is also information the corneal specialist doesn't have. I mean, they look at the cornea, but you send back a scleral profilometry, that's not something they're used to seeing. So you're providing them some information that they didn't previously have.
I've had many patients come in and they're happy. They're happy. Their vision is good. Their comfort is good. I look at their eyes with and without the lens. There's no staining. Everything looks great. But now we have the opportunity to do better. So I can design a lens that they have better vision, better comfort. Are we going to talk about multifocal sclerals? I hope so. We can provide better vision at all distances with scleral profilometry.
We're going to talk money, because ultimately, not only are we clinicians, but we're businessmen as well. And what it's done is it's changed and enhanced the level of time and value time that we can spend with the patients, because it gives the information quicker, more efficiently, and just that kind of 5 minutes of taking those examinations has cut down a lot of the experimental.
And that's a benefit for the patient. The patient don't want to stay in your office for 3 hours, putting on 5 different lenses while you figure it out.
Exactly.
There's a little loss of credibility.
How profilometry and technology in general can benefit your practices. One important area is the tech is impressive to patients, and so we actually use it almost as a practice builder to enhance the whole patient experience along the way. Patients in our office absolutely love the process of being able to see on a big screen their full ocular shape so that we can explain to them. You know, if I'm putting you in a higher cost freeform or impression-driven lens, these are my evidence-based reasons for why we would ask you to go down that path. And these are the reasons why we would maybe choose a different lens design. Patients buy into the process more when they're involved, just like anything. And so as a practice builder, using the tech to be impressive in our marketing attracts patients to our clinic. We get patients that come, find out that we're one of few centers in our area, which is growing exponentially in regards to the technology kind of running through as we have more time and better education and everything is advancing. At one point, corneal topography was fairly novel, and not every specialty fitter had it, and look at us now. So we use it in our office as a practice builder and also just as something to kind of make sure that patients can follow along the process.
But as your practice grows, the time that you can afford to each of these patients is going to diminish. So you're going to have to find ways to become more efficient, and the Eaglet is the best way I've found to get there.
It is just something to have in your practice. I go back to the business model again. It's a USP because, I guess we're not all in the same town. We're not in the same country. So each one of you who is looking at potentially getting an ESP machine device, you will become the only person in your town, in your city, in your country, in Jesus' case, to really have that quick assessment, and it's smart.
How often do you find that in your practice you are ordering empirically from your ESP versus taking the data, looking at that elevation map, and selecting a lens and building lens yourself? At this point in your practice, which direction do you find you're using the most often?
Pretty easy answer now that I understand it. 100%. So I actually bought my Eaglet in July of 2020. So this was right pretty soon after we were coming out of the COVID, shutdowns, or whatever you want to call these things. I was that person who just collected fit sets, and I was like oddly proud of it because I thought it somehow made me a better scleral lens fitter, because I had like 15 fit sets at one point, and most of my head just wasn't using. So once we started doing the Eaglet, there was a sanitary aspect where we just didn't have to worry about disinfecting scleral lenses anymore. I think, Melissa, you've done some work regarding a lot of this. I just didn't really want to deal with it. In the past, we would have had times where we're disinfecting lenses from a lens I used an hour before on a different patient. I grab a different fit set, not because I really want to, but because this one's still being busy disinfecting, so I can't use it now. And so there's all these practical aspects. So I 100% do empirical fitting.
I'll often do refits with the ESP with existing patients that are failing out of their lenses or not satisfied based on fitting or comfort. And in those cases, I design fully empirically now, where we can actually use the data to design a lens, pull the prior parameters from the last GP that they have, as long as that was fairly close to optically neutral, and then we go from there. So the sky's the limit really with empirical lens design.
Do you want me to talk about how it's changed my practice or how it's changed my life? Yeah, I mean, basically, you've got to understand, ESP rocks. It is ultimately.
And talking about that, one of the really nice things that the Eaglet team does is the setup is so easy. Pretty much you get the thing out of the box. It looks great, as you said, and it's a couple minutes to get running. Even now with COVID, we didn't get in-person training, but they have this online kind of course system with tests and everything, and in a couple days we were taking already our first shots.
But once you've got that beautiful image, which the patients are knocked out by, then you just literally go click, 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 design whatever lens you work with. And I don't know, it's about 15 or 16 different designs within the whole software. And there's no, you can only work with this company. There's virtually any company that any of you will be utilizing is on this with the algorithms. And if your company isn't, talk to the guys because they can get them on at some stage, This is the go-to next development machine to have. So you are picking the company, you're picking the design within the company, and you just go, click, tell me that lens. And it's like this magical appearance, like thing blossoming out of the ground, and you get the first lens. And there you go. And as everybody's said so far, that is often, like Jesus' case, the first lens fits, and that's it, out the door.
I'm a big fan of the first lens fit. I love, hearing about what else is coming out. I also think it drives a lot of the innovation that we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. Like even a couple years ago, there wasn't really any, there exactly wasn't any freeform lenses. Now there's like 5 or 6 of them maybe out there. So, and this is all from competition. So as somebody comes up with a better way of vaulting over pingueculas or centering a lens, freeform designs, next will be HOA optics or whatever, the Eaglet is providing this open platform that as a Eaglet user, you get to decide which lens or lab company you want to work with, and it may not be a lab company that you've ever worked with before. Okay, so love everything about that in the first lens fit. Direct Connect is essentially just a like an export file type of system, but instead of like exporting an image, you're exporting the entire raw data. So if you like to work with a particular company, and the more of these companies that are using Eaglet, and it's growing seemingly by the month, you can take your information, you can just send the whole thing the whole raw file, and then you can, place an order, but you can call your lab consultant, and they're looking at the exact same thing that you're looking at. And if they disagree or have a better suggestion, or maybe you want a more hands-off approach, whatever it is, now your lab has that information too.
The other thing that I think for us has been a big change is in the way we communicate with the labs. And so sometimes we have to be describing and sending pictures, the patient has an elevation here, and we try to measure it. And now we take the shot, we send them the shot, and we're both looking at the same thing. It's an objective reading. So that has been amazing for us. And it's less time with the patient, but it's also less time ordering the lenses and designing the lenses. So that has been great.
I was wondering when we brought this into our practice, how is this going to help my practice? And it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's completely transformed the way I fit scleral lenses. So we have the opportunity to impress our patients. We can show them the technology. They have better vision. They have better comfort. They're more comfortable with their scleral lenses. They have so many cool things that we can do with their lenses now that we couldn't do before. And so it's really a practice building opportunity for the practice. And for those of us who've been maybe fitting scleral lenses a while, it can re-energize our scleral lens practice. I mean, it's so exciting.
It is a leading technology that is growing and growing and growing. And now it's a kind of a must-have. So anybody that doesn't, you're going to be left behind.
So with the Eaglet, you're no longer having to constantly chase the innovation. You are essentially just waiting for the next software update. So the innovation is happening amongst the labs and amongst their designs, and then it's going to update, and then before you know it, you're already at the cutting edge, and you didn't have to buy anything that you didn't already own at that point. So
the Eaglet ESP is a full-featured topographer as well as profilometer, and so I want to spend a little time with that. In that we have axial maps, tangential maps, elevation maps, all these different maps. So it is full-featured.
In the past, we've really had a big disparity in technology as we build and grow. Our industry really responds to our needs as practitioners in terms of what we need to measure on the eye. Units in the past that were needed for different parts of the eye had to be totally separate. So one unit that was really, really good at measuring corneal topography couldn't necessarily get out onto the eye past the cornea, and vice versa. And the nice thing today is that we do have technology that is now built into units, into the ESP, that does allow us to blend all of our needs, and the technology is really maximized. Not only is our scleral data very accurate, the cornea data has really come a long ways to the point where we can now utilize ESP for other applications, not just fitting sclerals. And one thing that I've noticed that's a huge benefit that now the ESP is able to provide for us is that whole empirical design flow. And when it comes to our myopia practices, the patient experience is very, very important. Kids come in and they have only so much energy. The parents, there's a lot of time we need to spend discussing things in a myopia control clinic. And so empirical design has become a huge important part of our practice. And the cool thing that we're going to show you is a way that we can do this using the CRT lens in terms of empirical lens design just directly off of the ESP. For kids, there's a pretty generous amount of working space to deal with, and that can sometimes be a challenge with certain topographers. A lot of topographers, especially like small cone topographers, will get really, really close to the eye. It can make it a little hard to get good images on like very prominent brow bones, deep set eyes, long eyelashes, things like that. The Eaglet, if you get a chance, definitely go look at it in the exhibit hall. But you got a lot of space there to you yourself or a staff member try to get some better scans. It's also particularly comfortable for kids, maybe sometimes even more so than some of those other devices.
Yeah. And never forget, ESP rocks!
Rocks!